All right, I'm gonna keep it simple today and just rank the places I slept while I was homeless. Um, I'll start off with the best places I've slept while I was homeless, and end with the worst. The worst ones all kind of merge into one because it, it's it, when I was first homeless, I didn't know what I was doing, and so those spots all happened in like rapid succession. Um, but also, so this might help some people who are homeless or who are facing homelessness to come up with spots to sleep. But I also want to say that I think it's actually a lot easier nowadays to find places to sleep when you're homeless because things have changed and it seems to be a lot more laid back. Like, there was no homeless encampments when I was on the street, especially in New York. Now, I know with all the migrants and all that, now there's like a couple of homeless encampments in New York, so you can probably get away with it in a lot of places now that I couldn't do. But I'm going to talk about the ones that I have experience with. So, the best spot that I ever slept in when I was homeless is the place where I'm sleeping now, in my Honda CRV. I really don't consider myself homeless anymore because now I've got a place to keep all my stuff. I've got a place to take a nap if I want to. You know, when you're homeless, yeah, you can go sleep in the park, I guess, but I was never really comfortable doing that. Now that I've got a vehicle to live in, I take a nap whenever I feel like it. And I've got this thing set up so good. My setup is so dope that like it's I have no complaints. I am as happy in this living in this car as I was sleeping in an apartment for real. Um, Mainly because I've got everything in here that I ever had in an apartment except a shower. Um, and I just go to the gym and take a shower whenever I feel like it, and I don't have to pay rent. So like, I mean, it's a trade-off, but I am very happy and content, and I love it. I love having a vehicle to sleep in. So if you're homeless, my advice is get your money up and get a vehicle. Now, you know, some people get buses or they get like an ambulance or some like big, huge, mobile home, and that's great, I guess. I wouldn't want that because you can't do any stealth camping in that. You know, if you can't just, and the other thing is you can't really just drive that thing around. It really restricts your freedom to have a school bus converted, or I don't even like vans. Everyone's always like, why don't you get a van? Well, first of all, I don't want to drive a big goofy van all over the place. Second of all, it's obvious when you're sleeping somewhere in a van. People see some random van in a parking lot, they know. So you can't really do the whole stealth thing with these big, huge vehicles. So my advice is, if you're going to sleep in a vehicle, I wouldn't say a car either, because do what you got to do and start small if you have to. But ideally, I would say an SUV or a pickup truck with a topper is the perfect in between, where you can still have a pretty comfortable home to live in. I've got everything: running water. The next video I do, I'll show y'all in detail everything I got back here. But an SUV or a pickup with a topper is the perfect in between. You can have all the comfort of a home, minus a shower, which you can get a membership at the gym for $10-20 a month, and you can also sleep pretty much anywhere stealth and get away with it. So, if you get a big mobile home in a place like Florida, like a Winnebago or whatever, you can't stealth camp that anywhere. You're gonna get caught 9 times out of 10 you're gonna get bothered, and they're gonna mess with you and tell you to leave. So what, in a place like Florida, you're gonna have to pay at the camp places to sleep. You're like, in my opinion, if you're gonna do that, you may as well rent a room. It's probably gonna be cheaper to rent a room. So, if you're gonna sleep in a vehicle and you're trying to get off the street, my advice is SUV or pickup. I've got a Honda CRV, second generation. It's kind of a bigger Honda CRV, but still, it's tight in here. But I've got it set up to where you'd be amazed how comfortable I am back there. I'm chilling back there. I'll show y'all in the next video how I live in here, and you'll be blown away by the features that I've put in here. And so, so this is the best place I've ever slept in, homeless. It's such a dope spot. I don't even consider it homeless. But the next best place where I ever slept where I was homeless was a church on the Upper West Side. Now, you can look at it on Google Maps. I'm going to tell y'all my actual spot, which I've never done before because I didn't want to blow up the spot for whatever homeless people are staying there. But at this point, whatever. So, my spot on the Upper West Side, my main spot, which Ilya gave me. Ilya from the movie Heaven Knows What. That was one of my best friends on the street in New York. He got a room from some homeless outreach people, and he left me his spot on the Upper West Side, which was this church, which, if you go on Google Maps, go to Columbus Circle, and then go up Central Park West, and on the left, you're going to see a church with 2 big red doors. I used to sleep in the southern doorway, the doorway closer to Midtown, and this other homeless lunatic Puerto Rican dude used to stay in the northern doorway with his girlfriend, who, I gotta say, she was pretty hot for a homeless chick. She was one of the hottest homeless chicks I ever saw. And so my relationship with the Puerto Rican, I forgot his name. Sometimes I liked him, sometimes I didn't. I was mostly indifferent to him. I ignored him. I acted like he didn't exist. And then one day, one of my articles of clothing went missing. My favorite hoodie that I ever owned. I suspected him of stealing it. I believe he's a crackhead who will steal. And so I was watching him and trying to figure out if he did steal my hoodie, but I never got any real evidence of it, except my logic tells me it was him. But I can't. I almost went at him one day, and he handled me very properly that day. I'll just put it to you that way. I was on the verge. I was so angry and emotional at this hoodie going missing, because you got to realize it was the most expensive piece of clothing I ever bought. It was like a $250 North Face hoodie that I spent my hard-earned money on. I didn't panhandle and beg, and no, I worked for the money doing dollar jokes and portraits. I was doing portraits at this time. So, and it was a badass, it was camouflage on top with a very unique camouflage that was cool, real cool looking. It was green and brown and, regular camouflage colors, but it was a different pattern that looked really cool. And the bottom half of it was black. It was a zip-up hooded jacket from North Face. Very expensive, very unique. It was one of the, type of shit you can only get in Manhattan, unless you order it off the internet. But this was from the Manhattan North Face store. My favorite possession, pretty much. I wake up one day like a dummy. I was just leaving it sitting on my backpack, and it wasn't there. And I was very angry and upset about it. And so I suspected my Puerto Rican neighbor. Now, could I beat him in a fight? My guess is yeah. We're similar size, we're similar strength, I'm assuming. But actually, I'm probably stronger because I worked out every day, and I still work out every day. The other thing is I probably have more experience with boxing and wrestling than him. So, like, my money would be on me. I'll put it to you that way. But he was quick to fight. He's got some experience with fighting, so it would have been a toss-up. Who knows? But I was so angry and had so much emotion going through me that I don't think he really had a chance against me. So, I confronted him, and he calmed me down, and that was it. I still didn't believe him, but after we had our little confrontation, he actually disappeared for a couple of days, and by the time he came back, I was kind of over it. I was calm, too calm to start a fight with him. I was still mad, but I was past the point where I wanted to attack him. And so from that day forward, I wasn't too friendly with him. I suspected he stole my shit. But as years went by, we ended up kind of becoming friendly. And when all's said and done, whether he stole it or not, I can tell you I'm glad I didn't just assault him and attack him and try to hurt him, because I believe that I would have felt bad about it by now, because I'm just a different person now. And so I'm glad I didn't attack him. I wish that I still had that hoodie, but I for my own karma and my own peace of mind, I'm glad I didn't attack him. I'll put it to you that way. Trying to think if there's anything else to say about that spot. That spot was great, good spot. If you're gonna if you're gonna be homeless in a rich area like the Upper West Side of Manhattan, you gotta kind of have your shit together. You can't be lounging all day and pissing all over the place and leaving trash and getting hammered and starting fights. You gotta. The reason they liked me in that spot, I came at night around 9 or 10, set my shit up. I was out of there at 8 a.m. every morning. The neighbors liked me because I guess they figured if there's going to be a homeless person around here, we want it to be him, because he's not lingering all day, he's not making a mess, and he's not starting no shit. So the whole neighborhood actually liked me. I would come to my spot sometimes at night, and there'd be food sitting there. They would leave me food, they would leave me clothes. They liked me. One of the neighbors gave me my fox fur hat, fucking $300 fox fur hat, dope hat. And so, you know, if you handle it properly, then the neighbors are probably not going to have an issue with you, like my situation. So now the next best spot was, there's a place in Central Park called the Swedish Cottage. They do like a puppet show for kids there, I guess. I'm not sure. Another name for this place is called the Puppet Theater. I've never been inside the place, and so I don't really know exactly what they do. I'm assuming they put on a puppet show for kids. But so the problem with this spot, it's a good spot. It's secluded. It's deep in Central Park. It's fucking deep in Central Park. You can look at it on Google Maps. Look up Swedish Cottage in Central Park. You'll see my spot. I slept on the side where there's like a double door and an overhang. So I would come there at night, 9, 10 at night. The place was closed. I'd set up under the overhang, and I'd be out of there at 8 a.m. The reason I was staying in this spot now, so I was on the street, and then I started sleeping. A couple years into being homeless, Ilya left me that spot on the Upper West Side. Around 2014, I had been rejecting the homeless outreach people my whole life. the whole time I was homeless. But then this group of homeless outreach people came up to me in my church spot on the Upper West Side. This is around 2014. I'm addicted to heroin at the time. They were like, we can get you a room. I was like, I don't want a room in a fucking shelter. I'm good. I appreciate it. I don't want to stay in the shelter. They're like, no, it won't be in the shelter. We'll give you your own room at the YMCA in Harlem. I was like, oh, wait a minute. That I'll take, because now I can reinsert myself back into the matrix. I can kick heroin. I can get a job. I can get my money up and go rent a room. So I was thinking, this is my escape. I take the room in Harlem. I'm staying at the YMCA. I'm not quitting heroin. I'm still doing heroin. But I did get a job. A buddy of mine got me a job down in the financial district, getting people loans. So things are kind of getting better, this and that. Time goes on, I rent a room in the Bronx. I'm getting a very good deal. The homeless outreach people hooked me up with it. I got to pay rent, but it's only a couple of $100 a month. And it's in the Bronx, but I didn't care. I had a room. So this is how I ended up in the Bronx. What ended up happening was I lost the job in the financial district. I'm, back in the street doing my joke thing. Then I come up with the portrait idea. I'm making pretty good money. And I decided to just... My attempt at reinserting back into the matrix failed. The job, I lost the job. I'm back working on the street. I don't want to pay rent, and I don't want to live in the Bronx. My roommate in the Bronx, I got into a couple of fights with him. He pulled a butcher knife on me. Long story. I ditched the place. I went back out on the street. Now it's 2017. And, when I get to my church spot, the first night I stayed in Central Park, and the second night I went to go reacquire my church spot on the Upper West Side, but both spots were taken. I'm like, shit. So I tried to go there the next night, and both spots are taken. And I realized that, unless I drag this dude out of this spot and start a fight with him, I lost my spot. And I was off the street for a couple years. I couldn't just show up, this is my spot, 3 years later. So I could have, but then what would have ended up happening most likely is, while I was asleep, he would have whacked me over the head with a fucking brick. So I had to just let that spot go. I discovered the puppet theater because my buddy Ethan, my evil twin, I did a video about Ethan earlier in the videos, but my evil twin was staying in this area of the park, and he was like, there's spots around there if you want one. There's the Swedish cottage, there's the castle, there's this and that. I'm like, okay. So I started staying at the Swedish cottage / puppet theater. The problem with that spot is it's deep in Central Park. So I would have to drag all my shit all through the park, uptown, going uptown in Manhattan. Manhattan is on a slight angle. So when you're going uptown, you're going uphill a little bit most of the time. When you're going downtown, you're going downtown. Or you're going downhill. It's slight, it's barely noticeable, but if you're dragging a heavy-ass luggage behind you, you notice. So I would have to drag my shit all the way up to the Swedish cottage every night, which, it's a great workout, whatever, this and that. But the problem was the dragging luggage that I had at the time. I bought, it was made by Victorinox. It's the same company that makes Swiss Army knives. And so I thought it was a good luggage. It wasn't cheap. It was like $300-400. I bought it at Century 21 on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Great store. COVID closed them down, but Century 21 was a best place to buy clothes in New York. So, because you can get good clothes for cheap. And so you can't get like North Face, Patagonia type shit, but you can get other, name brand stuff, Polo, Calvin Klein, True Religion, all that shit. You can get it at Century 21. But so I bought the luggage there. It was the Victorinox, and I thought I had a good luggage. Within a couple months, all the miles I was putting on this thing, you got to realize I'm walking all over the place in New York. I got to work all day, then I got to go get food, then I got to drag it to my night spot, which was the Swedish cottage at this time. And within a month or two, the wheels fell off this Victorinox luggage. So my advice is, if you're going to be homeless, don't deal with it. Be careful what luggage you buy. The best luggage I ever had when I was homeless was a North Face, called the North Face Long Haul. It's got nice wheels, like rollerblade wheels, rugged, good wheels that lasted. Best luggage I ever had. But at this time in my life, I had the Victorinox thing. Fucking wheels fell off it within a couple months. Now, if you just taking it through the airport a couple times a year, it's probably a good enough luggage. But if you're going to be roughing it like I was, it's no good. It can't handle it. So the wheels broke off the motherfucker. So for a couple of days, I was dragging it with no wheels, and you can probably imagine the bottom was rubbing off the thing, and so I went to the hardware store and I bought some wheels, the type of wheels you put on a dolly, and I just screwed them into the bottom of the luggage, and that worked. So, but every couple months those wheels would break off, something would go wrong with them, and after replacing the wheels 50 times, and it was hell on earth, dragging that heavy ass thing uphill. Half the time the wheels ain't working, and fucking nightmare, man. I was so filled with rage at this point in my life. You got to realize, coming from my perspective, like, I've been playing by society's rules my whole life, and look where it got me. I sleep on the street, spring, summer, fall, winter, snow, rain. Like, I've been working my whole life. I lost everything. I've been playing by the rules. I got a luggage with no wheels on it. I was fucking enraged. 90% of my life at this point. And so, every night when I would get to my spot at the Swedish cottage, after dragging my shit all the way up there, I was ready to fight someone. I was so, like, my blood was up because dragging it all that way, and the weight, and man, I was angry. So what ended up happening at the Swedish cottage, now, the people who worked in there left me alone. They knew I was there. I'm pretty sure they knew I was there, because I could hear them inside when I was packing my stuff up and leaving. But they never came out. They never said a word to me. They left me alone. Months go by. I'm assuming they're letting me stay there. They don't have an issue. And so, I'm being respectful. I'm not leaving a mess. I'm out of there at 8 a.m. every day. And so one night I'm sleeping, and it must be 3-4 in the morning. A fucking cop wakes me up, and I'm pissed off, and I'm angry, and I'm annoyed. But this is the type of shit you got to deal with when you're homeless. I'm like, okay, he's telling me to leave. I'm like, okay, I left. I go and sleep on another spot of mine out in the city, and couple weeks go by, everything's fine. I'm back staying at the Swedish cottage, and then 3-4 in the morning, same cop fucking wakes me up, and he's like, I already told you can't stay here. And I'm like, what the fuck do you care? Like, I ain't bothering nobody. The people who own this place don't have a problem with it. What's your problem? And he's like, well, someone called and they were complaining, so now I gotta run you out of here. And I'm thinking back, and I was like, I think one morning, one of these little boomer, yuppie, Manhattan assholes I was packing my shit up, and he's like, you're not allowed to stay here. And I'm like, well, go fuck yourself. And so I guess he called the cops. And so this cop wakes me up second time. I'm pissed off. I leave. But I'm thinking, I'm going back there tomorrow night. Fuck this cop. Fuck the neighbor. Fuck these people. I got nowhere to sleep. And I don't give a shit. So I don't know if it was the next night or maybe a couple of nights later, the same fucking cop wakes me up. And now I'm fucking pissed. And I'm like, to be honest, I wanted to fight this dude, you know. And I don't remember what I said, my exact words to him, but I was conveying the message that under any other circumstances, I would beat your ass for this, bro. Like, you know, you got to realize, from my perspective, how bitter and enraged I was with everything at this point. I lived according to their rules my whole life. They took everything from me. All the money I ever earned, it's all gone. I've been working my whole life. My apartment, evicted, everything. I've lost everything. They've taken everything from me. I'm not a criminal. I'm good. My whole life I've gone out of my way to not be a criminal. At one point, I was considering doing armed robberies and hurting people and living that way. I decided against it. And so here I am, and I'm thinking to myself, I've gone way out of my way to not hurt these people my whole life. And here they are, still fucking bothering me. They won't leave me alone. They took everything from me, and then they got me sleeping in the fucking park, in the Swedish cottage, and they're still bothering me. They're still looking for problems, is how I felt. I just want to fucking sleep. I don't, you know. And that was my state of mind. And I was thinking to myself, in any other time in history, if people did me like this, it'd be war. I'd be taking their lives from them. I was that upset. And I felt that the injustice of it, and I was disgusted. I was so beyond angry. And so I'm telling this cop in, you know, no uncertain terms, like, you're very lucky that I can't put my hands on you, because I would twist your head off your shoulders. And I'm not a big dude, but I can tell you one thing. He knew in the deepest part of his heart that I was not lying, that I was not blustering and threatening. I was restraining myself. Like I said, I'm not a big dude. I'm like 150 pounds. I'm strong as a fucking ox. But just the emotion going through me at the time made me, he had no chance. And he knew it, and I knew it. And so I left the park that night, and as I'm leaving, I'm thinking to myself, you can't go back to that spot, because you can't handle another run-in with this cop, because who knows, you might do something and throw your whole life away. So I said, I'm not staying in that spot no more. I said, now I'm going to my church on the Upper West Side. I don't care who's staying there. It's mine now. I tried to be peaceful and let him have the spot, and look what happened. I'm fucking done. I'm done being nice. I'm done being civil. It's time to be a savage, wild animal. And so I go to the church spot that night expecting a showdown, and there's no one in it. And I was like, God is good. And so I started staying in that spot again. And, you know, a couple months later, the Puerto Rican moved into the other doorway. But it was very fortunate. It just worked out that I got my old spot back at the church. And so now, geez, man, this video's already been a half hour. Shit. So I'm just gonna finish this video. If it ends up being 40 minutes, that's what it is. Now, the next spot, which was pretty good, was the castle, which was right by the Swedish cottage. Now, the reason I didn't go once I got kicked out of the Swedish cottage for the last time, I'm not dealing with this cop no more. I could have went and started staying at the castle every night, but the problem was, you know, it's an uphill drag to the Swedish cottage. From there, you got to go up a real steep hill to the castle, and on top of that, there's steps. You know, intermittently throughout this like hill climb, there's groups of steps. So I'm like, you know, I'm dragging all my shit to the cottage, and I did stay at the castle for a little while. At this point, I think I don't really remember 100%, but I just got tired of that climb. And so from then on, the only time I stayed at the castle is when the weather was real bad, because there's a lot of coverage up there. If you look up Belvedere Castle on Google Maps, you can see that there's one spot with an overhang that's almost like a watchtower on the corner. That was my main spot up there. But then there's another overhang on the other side, which is big, and that was my secondary spot up there. And so if the weather was real bad, that's where I'd stay, because it was one of the drier spots in the city for homeless people to stay. So if you look on Google Maps, go to the street view at Belvedere Castle, and you can take you can go up there and you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So the castle was the next good one. Now, this spot was, there's Strawberry Fields, which is, so John Lennon from the Beatles got killed right outside the Dakota building, which is on the Upper West Side. It's on 72nd Street in Central Park West. John Lennon and Yoko Ono lived in the Dakota. John Lennon comes out of the Dakota one day, and the guy, I forget his name, the guy who killed him, the guy shoots him. He kills John Lennon right out there on 72nd Street. After that happened, they built a memorial for John Lennon in Central Park right across the street, and they called it Strawberry Fields. Now that's where I did my portraits. So there's a spot to sleep deep in Strawberry Fields, which is basically like a natural shelter. It's the bushes converge in this spot and make kind of a natural shelter. So that was another spot where I would stay. The problem with that spot was there were other homeless people who knew about that spot. So if I got there and someone was in the spot, 9 times out of 10 it was someone I knew. I wasn't going to get in a fight with them over the spot. That was one issue with it. Second issue with it was the guy Harrison, who works in Strawberry Fields. I don't think he works there no more. I think we all ran him out of there. But so Harrison, who used to be our friend, all the homeless lunatics on the Upper West Side, we used to be cool with Harrison. We were all friends with him. And then Harrison turned on us for some reason. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but he had a run-in with one of the homeless people up there, and from then on, Harrison was not nice to any of us. So what turned me against Harrison was one night I slept in the bush spot, and I wake up the next day, it's freezing out. It's like fucking 18 degrees. My hands are too cold. I'm like, I need to go get some coffee and warm up, and I'm going to leave a couple of things here. And after I warm up and get my coffee and use the bathroom, I'll come back and retrieve my shit. So I left a yoga mat and an umbrella, maybe a couple of other things stashed in the bush. And I went to McDonald's, I got my coffee, I used the bathroom, drank my coffee, I come back, and my shit's gone. And somehow I found out it was Harrison. I don't know, someone told me this, I don't remember. But from then on, I turned on Harrison. I was no longer nice to Harrison. And I stopped talking to him. I stopped he became invisible to me. He became dead to me from that day forward. And because I was always cool to Harrison, and he had no reason to steal. It was a nice umbrella and a nice yoga mat, and I'm homeless. I can't afford to go buy these things, and you know what I mean. So I turned on Harrison after that. I didn't go up and try to start a fight with him, although later on I almost got into it with him. But that's another story for another day. So, but the other homeless people, he was really trying them. I forget what he did. He did something. He got everyone all upset. What they started doing was Harrison would be in Strawberry Fields doing his work, planting some plants or cleaning this or doing that. The homeless people would watch what he did, wait for him to leave, and then destroy it. They'd uproot, rip his plants up, put them right in the middle of Strawberry Fields on the plaque, the memorial for John Lennon, so that Harrison would see it and know this was done maliciously against him. And so they started doing things like this to Harrison every single day. And it got to the point where I stayed out of it. I was trying to make money. My main concern was making money. Other homeless people around there who Harrison got on their bad side, they had nothing to do but fuck with him all day. So that's what they would do. And it got to the point where one morning I was setting up to do my work and Harrison comes in, and I knew they tore his shit up and threw it on the plaque. And Harrison comes in that morning, he saw it, and he screamed at the top of his lungs. I was like chuckling to myself because like I was like, they finally drove Harrison straight out of his fucking mind. So he lost that battle, bro. I don't know if Harrison still works at Central. I don't know what happened to him, but they took his sanity that day. And I think what it was they just sprayed a bunch of like shit all over the memorial, the John Lennon memorial, which Harrison would have to clean up. And this shit was caked on like overnight. It was a bunch of nasty shit that Harrison had to spend hours that day cleaning up. And so Harrison snapped that day. He stopped fighting with everyone around there that day. He became very quiet and very minding his own business. And so they left him alone after that because he was defeated. He was done. So, you know, I just found that funny because Harrison had he could have called the cops, and he did all the time. And, you know, he had the whole government backing him. He still couldn't win against the homeless people, and here's why. The homeless people have nothing to lose. Harrison would call the cops, and they would all just sit there and wait for the cops to come. The cops would come, and they'd be like, we don't know anything about that. We didn't do it. He's out of his fucking mind. I don't know what happened. And the cops are just like, what do you want us to do? The Harrison lost. He realized he came up against a force of nature that he could not defeat, and that was the homeless lunatics around the Upper West Side. Anyways, so that was Strawberry Fields. Now, these are the worst spots. Now, I'm going to try to expedite this and, you know, make the video under 45 minutes. So, when I was first homeless, my plan was to sleep in Penn Station because November 2nd, 2012 was my first day homeless. It's getting cold in New York in November. I couldn't sleep outside. I didn't have the proper stuff. So, my plan was to sleep at Penn Station. All plans go to shit. And like all other plans, this plan went to shit. I realized very quickly, you can't sleep at Penn Station. The cops wake you up. And I was thinking, well, Penn Station's a big place. There's tunnels and shit everywhere. I'll find a place to sleep where they're not going to find me. And I searched every crevice of Penn Station, and I found some deep spots, and I tried to sleep in them. The cops know every single spot. There's nowhere to go. New Jersey Transit, I tried the Long Island Railroad, I tried everywhere. And the cops found me every time and would wake me up. I would only get a couple of hours of sleep before the cops would wake me up. So I realized this ain't gonna work. I can't sleep in Penn Station. That was probably the worst spot I tried to sleep in because I could never get more than an hour or two of sleep. So once that spot, I realized that wasn't gonna work. Nowadays you might be able to get away with sleeping in Penn Station. I don't know. You'd have to try. But it didn't work for me. So I started sleeping on the A train. I would have slept on the E train, except Hurricane Sandy had just come through, and the E train wasn't running. It got flooded down around the financial district. The tracks were like underwater. So I had to sleep on the A train. Not the greatest place to sleep, pretty bad place to sleep. The problem is every time it gets to JFK, they wake you up. Everyone has to get off the train. They bring a new train in. Everyone gets back on. The homeless people go back to sleep. So you would only get like 4 or 5 hours of sleep at a time, but it's better than 1 or 2. Eventually, the other trains got fixed and the tracks unflooded and everything got, back to normal. I started sleeping on the E train. The E train goes all the way through Queens, Brooklyn, and Manhattan. It does this huge circuit. It's like the longest run in the New York City subway, or it's up there. And so that's where I started sleeping. It goes from Jamaica, Queens to the World Trade Center. And so that was, I was able to sleep all night on the E train. They don't wake you up at the end. Nobody gives a shit. Every once in a while, if the train had to go for maintenance or whatever, they'd wake everyone up. That happened maybe once a month. So I started sleeping on the E train. That's the second worst spot I slept in. Now, at this point, I'm sleeping on the E train for a couple months. And one of my spots where I was working was Times Square. I was doing a dollar joke thing. And there was a dude out in Times Square named Stu who used to dress as a Wheaties cereal box, and he had a sign that said, "I need money for weed." Anyways, Stu was from Philadelphia. He rode his bike to New York City. Stu was nuts. Covered in tattoos, Stu was. And when I first saw Stu, I was assuming me and him were gonna have like issues. I thought he was like this, I thought he was going to come up and try to rob me or something. He looks like a thug. Anyways, that wasn't the case. Stu was cool. We ended up becoming friends. And we were both homeless in New York. We're similar age. We're into similar things. And so one night I'm in Times Square working and Stu's hanging out with me, talking to me. He's like, where do you sleep at night? I was like, dude, I sleep on the fucking E train. I was like, it's pretty good. You don't get woke up. I sleep, 8 hours a night. He was like, dude, fuck the E train. He's like, I sleep at an internet cafe. He's like, come down there. He's like, I stay there. Mike stays there. Steve stays there. This girl, Shelly, we knew. He's like, we all stay down there. He's like, why don't you fucking stay down there? I was like, well, I didn't know about it. He's like, yeah, it's like $7. It's in Chinatown. It's an internet cafe. You pay $7 and they leave you alone overnight. And you sleep in like a recliner chair. You can put your feet up on the table. Nobody cares. Everything's fine. He's like, we smoke weed in there. We chill. He's like, come down there with me tonight. He's like, $7 and you can sleep there. I was like, okay. I went with Stu that night. And we were chilling. I was like, damn, this is dope. I was like, this is fucking great. I'm going to stay here every night. And that's what I did for the next couple years. I stayed at the internet cafe with Stu and Callie and fucking Ed and Mike and Shelly, and I can't think of everyone's names right now. You know who else used to stay in there? This is someone who's famous. You ever heard of fucking Jumanji? He's a famous skateboarder from New York City. Look up Jumanji. He used to stay in the internet cafe, and he's a real character, man. But he's famous, bro. Jumanji is world famous. He used to stay at the internet cafe with us. So I guess that's the end of this video. 43 minutes, a little longer than I wanted it to be. So, if you're homeless, there's some ideas for you. If you know of any other good spots for homeless people to sleep, say it in the comments for any other homeless people that stumble into this, so it can be like a resource for people on the street for, places to stay. So, if you want a response to the comment, try to get it within the first 30. I usually respond to the first 30 at least. I appreciate y'all. Thanks for the subs. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the tips. Happy Thanksgiving. My next video will probably be after Thanksgiving. Yeah, maybe I'll just show show y'all like a detailed tour of the car I sleep in and all the features and shit, and I'll show y'all how I live in the car. CRV, it's somewhere between a car and a SUV. It's a Honda CRV, 2005, second generation. Best CRVs in my opinion. Anyways, yeah, happy Thanksgiving. I appreciate y'all, and I'll see you on the next one. Everybody have a good one.